Ole Miss's season comes to the end in the Fiesta Bowl, but it wasn't necessarily a horrible result. I'll explain in just a second. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the number one sports podcast network in the world, and that's all because of you. All because of you. Thank you very much for that. On today's show, we will look back at Miami defeating Ole Miss in the national semifinals 31-27 in what was an instant classic level game. There's two separate conversations that probably need to be had, and we will try and thread that needle in this show. Ole Miss had no business having the game that close and having the second half that they had with as poorly as they played in the first half. But they were able to do it and had the lead with 20 seconds to go in the game, showing that they belong on this national stage. And the narrative of Ole Miss not being able to win a national title, it's dead. We'll talk about all of that stuff. And please, if you're commenting in there, put where you're commenting from. Producer Becky will start over. We'll get that on there. I know we got a bunch of LSU and Miami trolls and all of those, and you're not going to get in. Sorry. But at least you're trying. So good job there. So thank you very much. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff boost every game day. They had Miami as a 3.5-point favorite all week. Miami won by 4 points. Vegas is really good at what they do. All right, so let's talk about this game. Like I said, there's probably two conversations that need to be had about this game. First off, Ole Miss started unbelievably slow, like only 7 plays in the first quarter. They had missed tackles and blown assignments, and the worst of the Ole Miss defense appeared in the first half of the game. And the fact that Miami was only ahead 17-13 should have given everybody the level of hope that they had, honestly. The second half, Ole Miss's offense started to move and started to work. And Trinidad Chambliss, he's simply the best player in college football, period. If he gets his waiver, Ole Miss is going to be a top 5 team in 2026. There's not much going on. It's going to be a harder schedule, but this is a good team. But they were able to pick it out, and he almost had nearly 300 yards passing after going in the first half for like 60 or something like that. So Trinidad Chambliss had a pretty good game in the second half of the game. But the problem that Ole Miss had was not the Miami defensive line, because that's what everybody heard about, is how good the Miami defensive line is. Ruben Bain and Mesdor and all those guys. And like I said, good defense. They are a really good defense. We talked about that all week. The problem was the offensive line for Ole Miss tonight. And where Miami had the advantage was amongst the offensive line against the Ole Miss defensive line. It was going to be an extremely physical game, and Miami took advantage of that. I thought that at the end of the game, when Ole Miss had the 27-24 lead, that Carson Beck was going to have to throw the ball down the field, and Ole Miss had a chance to get home. But at that point, and this is the sad part, at that point, Ole Miss was 90 plays in on defense by the time Carson Beck ran in, and they were just worn out. It was like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch, and credit to Miami for doing that and sticking with that. But the reality is, a missed tackle by one of Ole Miss's best defensive player gave Miami 4 points in the game. That gave them 4 points. A busted coverage gave them a walk-in touchdown in the first half. Ole Miss beat themselves. Miami didn't beat them despite how they did offensively and all that. Now, Miami won the game and they get the home national championship game, but Ole Miss proved it belonged at this level. And they played really well and it worked. And I hate the chaos, in my opinion. The chaos was it caused the slow start. There wasn't the script like there normally is with an Ole Miss offense. Once Ole Miss kind of zeroed in on what they were doing, it turned into normally calling a ball game, and now all of a sudden you can go muscle memory by doing that. But the script, the early part, whenever Ole Miss has a statement of intent, normally at the beginning of the game, it wasn't there. And I blame the chaos for that, the transfer portal, the LSU, all of that stuff. Now it's finally behind us. It is finally behind Ole Miss, and one positive for that is the Ole Miss transfer portal doesn't get extended past the 15th. So we'll see exactly how that looks. I do expect a couple of players to get into the transfer portal, but I don't think it's going to be anything like what we thought it might have been like a month ago, essentially. But listen, it was a great football game. It was an epic, classic football game. 2 in a row that Ole Miss has played. 3 playoff games Ole Miss has played. That's ahead of most everybody. Pete Golding is tied for 3rd in the SEC history in playoff wins. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can take away from this season. This Ole Miss football team completely balled out all year. They were the best team in the Southeastern Conference. I don't think it was particularly close. They had one bad quarter in Sanford Stadium, and then the SEC tiebreakers took over, and that's the reason Ole Miss didn't play in Atlanta. But if you look at this game, you can see how Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot. When you look at this game and how Ole Miss reacted, you should walk out of that with a lot of pride. Because like I said, once there was a problem in the first half, and there was a problem in the first half when you saw defensively. And I said all week, if Miami runs for over 150 yards, they're going to win the game. They ran for 191. We'll go over the box score in just a second. But offense-wise, they did a good job. Over 40 minutes of time of possession. Now, I'm not a big time of possession hawk because until 30 seconds to go in the game, Ole Miss was leading the game. So I'm not really going to play the time of possession thing with anybody. And anybody that talks about that, I'll just roll my eyes and keep going. The play that Carson Beck ran in was a great call. It was man coverage. You ran people off of that. You basically got him on the ground or he was able to run into the end zone. So it was a great play call by them. Ole Miss, defensively, they're going to be fine. They are. Today, they got out physical. You know, you always talk about the Georgia tax that you have to play. That Ole Miss Georgia game was a war. It was. And it is hard to bounce back the next week from doing that. And this was a short turnaround from that to this. Miami had an extra day of preparation and all of that going on. So you had to deal with the Georgia tax on top of everything else. But that being said, Ole Miss made plays and got back in the game. Daquan Wright was a weapon. He should have been used earlier if that was honest. And the Ole Miss offensive line played pretty well. Miami's defense is really good. But once the offense kind of got their footing, that fourth quarter happened. And I genuinely thought that Ole Miss was going to win that game all the way up until the point where they didn't. Heck, the last play of the game was brutal pass interference. Now, granted, they're never going to call that, but good gosh, horrible pass interference. But a bust, a missed tackle, that's why you lost the game, not because of what happened in the fourth quarter, Carson Beck scoring a touchdown or the Hail Mary at the end, the pass interference and all that. That is why you lost, not because of anything else. It was on you. Ole Miss lost this game. They didn't get beat. Now, Miami won the game. Not saying they didn't, but missed tackles, double-digit missed tackles by Ole Miss in the first half, and that busted coverage was almost inexcusable. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, when we come back, we will look at the box score do a little bit of cleaning up on that and kind of look at what is going on right here on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, a Miami Ole Miss football game. I don't know. Doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugiet Ready is a next generation prescription treatment created to support both brain and body so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters most. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. So if you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to rugiet.com.lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Hey, do us a favor. Subscribe, like, comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but it keeps all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast out there. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check out the link down in the show notes below to learn more. Also, if you're going to comment, the third segment of this show, like always, is going to be all about you. Leave your comment, put where you're commenting from, please, in every post, and we will try to get to as many as we can get. Lots of comments out there today, so if we don't get you, I apologize for that. Surely there'll be other stuff later on in the week where we can do that. Now, let's do a little box score cleaning as well. Miami won the game 31-27. Ole Miss had 23 first downs, Miami 28. Ole Miss had 121 yards rushing. Miami had 191, despite Ole Miss basically abandoning the running game in the second half. Ole Miss had 277 yards passing. Miami had 258. 398 yards of total offense to Miami's 459. Miami had an interception. Ole Miss had no turnovers. And Ole Miss penalty-wise and all that played a relatively clean game, but they had mistakes all over the place when it comes to what they can do in the game. Now, the leaders over on, you had Trinidad Chambliss, 23 of 37, 277 yards, and a touchdown, no interceptions. Kewan Lacey, 11 carries, 103 yards, averaged 9 yards a carry. It hurts that his hamstring problem that he had hampered him for as long as it did. It was basically worth 2 quarters until they, I guess, figured something out for him to work on as well. The leader in the game, Deshaun Stribling, 5 catches, 77 yards. Caden Lee, 5 for 67. Daquan Wright, 3 for 64. Once they figured out the Daquan Wright thing, it was basically over. They could do what they want to on offense. Harrison Wallace, 4 for 40 yards. Logan Diggs, the check down guy, 2 for 11. Caleb Odom had the big 2-point conversion. He also had a catch, 1 for 4 yards in this game. Tackle-wise, the leader was TJ Daugherty. He had 11 total, 9 solo. Also had a sack in the game, which was his tackle for loss. Suntaran Perkins had 7 tackles, 1.5 sacks in the game. Will Eccles had a half sack in the game. Prince Will Amamielin had a sack as well. They got to Carson Beck 4 times. Kapina Gushigan had an interception. And the thing that got you is like Malachi Toney played well, man. He's going to be a really good football player for Miami. He is going to be a really good football player, and to see what happens. They did what they said they were going to do, what everybody expected them to do, and Ole Miss couldn't match up on the defensive line. And once you have inferior offensive line and inferior defensive line going together, that's usually a very hard success rate to win games, and Miami was able to pull it out at the very end on a Carson Beck run. No, seriously, it was a good game. It was an excellent game. And Ole Miss fans should hold their heads up high. You won 13 games this season. You had an unbelievably run. And you didn't make it to Miami to the national championship game, but the way it's situated, you got to the Final Four. There's going to be a banner going up in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium next year to where they do something with college football playoff and list what's going on. And you're kind of right where you want to be moving forward. And with the players coming back, with the transfer portal humming like you would expect, this Ole Miss team has a chance to be a very highly ranked top 5 level team, especially if Trinidad Chambliss gets his waiver. We'll see what happens with Deuce Knight. We'll see what happens with other quarterbacks that's going on. We saw that DJ Lagway ended up committing to Baylor. So all of this is pretty good for Ole Miss. I hate that Ole Miss lost the game. I hate the way Ole Miss lost the game. But when you look at the big picture, they are absolutely going to be all right. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, when we come back, your comments. We get into the comment section a little bit and talk about what's going on. So stick around. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. You know, the college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get on the action every single game, every day of the playoffs, because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets that you already feel good about. Ride with the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup. Take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset's coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. When you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. All right, so let's get into the comment section and commiserate and have a little bit of group therapy if you want to. Let's see. Mark Walsh says, STL from St. Louis. Stephen, enjoyed all of your videos. Really appreciate all you do. Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you for watching all this. The crossover with Alex Dono on Thursday or Wednesday, whenever that aired, it kind of came to fruition. It kind of looked like that, especially if you listen to what Alex Dono said. I mean, he's a good dude. The reality of this situation is Ole Miss had to expend so much energy on the run game that it opened up some of the stuff in the pass game a little bit later on. Ole Miss is going to be absolutely fine. I know that it hurts in this game and losing in that fashion, but if you look at the way the first half went, it didn't have to be that way. I've seen that first half game turn on Ole Miss. Ole Miss showed a lot of resiliency to come back. And like I said, if Trinidad gets his waiver, you're looking at a top 5 football team next season. Will Pignetti, hope Trinidad gets his waiver and we get Deuce Knight. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. Let's see. C Buckles from the SIP, gratitude to the seniors. Re-sign as many as we can that we want, and we'll see what's up. So we'll see. All right. Constitutionalist says, hopefully the transfer portal has provided the needed help for Ole Miss's defense. Ole Miss's defense is going to be fine. If you look at some of the defensive linemen that has been brought in, it's going to be fine. If you look at some of the starters that are being brought, Jaheim Otis and the guy from Florida, so they're like really big guys coming in the transfer portal. Ole Miss is going to be fine defensively. They got overmatched. Miami exploited a matchup. It happened. Ole Miss lost a football game today. They didn't lose a football game because they didn't deserve to be there. They didn't lose a football game for any number of reasons. They lost a football game because they made mistakes. They were the least clean playing team in the first half, and it gave them 11 points. And when you look at that, you can see that you have very slim margins of error when you get in games like this, in the Final Four, where everybody you're playing are good teams. Miami played a really good game. They had an excellent game plan, and they picked their spots with Kadarius Toney and Malachi Toney. Or sorry, the other Toney is from Florida, but good player, all of that. Brandon Baggett says Trinidad played his heart out tonight, fought hard, lost, but should have been a pass interference at the end. Hotty toddy, go Rebs from Manatee, Mississippi. Yes, it absolutely was pass interference. They will never call that penalty. Ole Miss lost that game whenever they had the coverage bust in the first half or the missed tackle on Toney in the first half. That's where they lost the game. That's 11 points that you can point to right now. It wasn't on a missed pass interference at the very end. I get what you're saying. But they're never going to call that penalty. Sean Nissen, congrats, Miami. That was an ugly game. Great season for Ole Miss. Hotty toddy from Brandon, Mississippi. Yeah, congrats to Miami on that. They did what they needed to do. They made plays when they had to make it. Absolutely. But they weren't the better team. It was one of those things that's a gut punch. And I think Ole Miss fans watching this video saw the mistakes in the first, double-digit missed tackles, all of that coming back and Ole Miss losing the game the way they did in the last 30 seconds and all that. But if you want to look at it, they won a game just like that against Georgia the round prior. You got both ends of the spectrum for what's going on. I will say this. Ole Miss was the best SEC team this year. I don't think it was particularly close. One bad quarter in Athens, Georgia, and messed up SEC tiebreakers is the reason why Ole Miss didn't get to go to Atlanta this year as well. But if you go to Atlanta, you likely win that game, the rematch there, and then you get a bye week, and all of this is weirdness happens. So this run that Ole Miss had, the home playoff game, it likely isn't there. So I guess it's like make the best out of it. Sad Rebs fan. Greatest season in program history. Grateful to witness it. We acquire the right talent and depth on the defensive side through the portal. We'll be right back, assuming the NBA gives us Trinidad his waiver. If Trinidad gets his waiver, he is a favorite for the Heisman Trophy next year. Period. He is a favorite for the Heisman Trophy if he gets his waiver. If he gets his waiver, Ole Miss is a top 5 team. One of the favorites for the Southeastern Conference next year. I get that Ole Miss's schedule is rough, but next year, if he gets his waiver, that's a top 5 team, Heisman favorite, and everything keeps going. The momentum that you're seeing in the transfer portal, that's going to continue again now that the game is over and they can concentrate fully on that, especially with their staff. The reality of it is right now, John David Baker is the offensive coordinator. He's not a fill-in tight end coach or something like that. He is the offensive coordinator. That staff is doing their job. The staff that Ole Miss has is doing the job with a week to go in the transfer portal. Instead of having to worry about necessarily a game plan to do, now they can go completely all out on 2026. I'd rather have a game to prepare for, but it kind of is what it is. James York from Vicksburg, Mississippi. I hate that we lost, but the guys played their hearts out. Rebel love to the whole team. Yeah, they completely fought. I want to know what Pete Golding says at halftime. I'm curious. Most of the time after losses, I don't watch the season, but I'm going to watch the season this time to see what Pete said at halftime, if that's even in there, because they still had the problem of being a little bit overmatched on the line of scrimmage. That wasn't going away, but Ole Miss fighting back and figuring out a way to get stops. Unbelievably impressive for Ole Miss. I'm telling you. You have Miami, who I guess, do you call Miami a blue blood? I mean, they haven't been to where they were in 2001, 2002, that time frame in all those years. But I guess of all the teams left, they're kind of a blue blood. I guess Oregon is as well. But it's interesting to see especially if Indiana wins. If Indiana wins, basically they're playing a game in their home stadium on their home field against Fernando Mendoza, who's from Miami. That's interesting. William Bowles, that missed field goal in the third quarter hurt them. If they made that, they could have kicked a game-winning field goal from Smyrna, Tennessee. Well, yeah, missed field goals hurt, but Ole Miss missed a field goal as well. UMC bat, USMC bat from Satellite Beach, Florida. What a game. I thought we had quite a few chances to win, but we couldn't quite pull it through. Defense had a few good stops, but not enough. The offense took too long to get going. Yeah, it's one of those things that the slow start that Ole Miss had in the first quarter, I'm going to blame that entirely on all the chaos that happened last week, because the script for this Ole Miss team, that was the first time that it didn't look right. And you saw later in the game, it wasn't just a talent issue. It was something else. There was a problem with the script. The Mr. Bones from Danville, Alabama, man, the team put up a hell of a fight this season to get where they are. Coach Golden needs to tighten the ship and build on this, but we'll be back for next season, no doubt. Yeah, they were absolutely. I get that this is a hard way to lose a game. This is a pretty great way to go into 2026, because the reality is Pete Golding does need a little bit to go. You need a little bit of pain to get going. You want some galvanization. You want all of that in the transfer portal and the work hard and everything going. A game like this that you just lose because you played sloppy in the first half with missed tackles and things like that, probably not the worst thing going into off-season workouts, which, heck, maybe February 1st. I do not know when they're going to start that, but it seems like it'll be pretty close as well. Walter Denny says the ride of this was unbelievable. I'm proud of all these young men. Missed tackles were ridiculous, and the offensive play calling stunk. That obvious holding and pass interference has to be called. If you're talking about the final catch, they're never going to call that. Brian Powers, it was a great season, especially having to deal with Kiffin and still going 13-2, making it to the Final Four. Yeah, they're going to put a banner up for what happened this season for Ole Miss, and they should. They absolutely should. The players associated with Ole Miss this year, this was a special football team. They weren't perfect. They were flawed, but every team in college football is flawed. Everybody has problems. Even Indiana is not without problems. So if you can exploit those problems, if you run across the team that has the ability to take advantage of that, I mean, let's look at this real quick, okay? Against Arkansas, Arkansas had the means to run the football to where the quarterback could kind of unlock the defense. They were able to do that. Now, Ole Miss made adjustments in the second half and was able to shut that down. Ole Miss won that game because of a recovered fumble. Against Georgia, same thing happened. They could run the ball, unlock the defense. Once you run the ball on Ole Miss's defense, you can unlock what's happening on the back end of it, and you can take advantage of it. Second time Ole Miss and Georgia played, they did a much better job of taking care of the run. This game, Miami completely ran the ball on Ole Miss, 191 yards. It's a lot of rushing yards. And they ran the play clock down every single time all the way to the end to basically ramp up the time of possession. And the way it sits, Miami had 90 or so plays over the course of the game. At the end of the game, when it was very important and you were trying to pressure Carson Beck, you might not be able to get to Carson Beck, and he was able to run into the end zone because of all the gut punches that you had to take during the game. Ole Miss has to do better jobs against the run. And I think they will as this goes. I think this game is going to be a little bit different moving forward. So we'll see exactly how Ole Miss looks as a football program. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Ole Miss. Tomorrow morning, this will be the morning show for what's going on. We're going to try and have some reactions of what's going on, talking to Bill Flowers and stuff like that. we're going to autopsy the heck out of this, but that was a heck of a football game. Congrats to Miami. But we have to play better in that situation. I guess what happened the week before, playing better wasn't necessarily an option, as Joe just told you how chaotic last week was for Ole Miss. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you can get all the latest episodes. We're on all of the social channels, so check out that as well. Did Locked On Ole Miss make your Spotify Wrap? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we will drop you the code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. For those of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. They do a great job. Hotty toddy, everybody. Remember, this football season has come to an end, but this is a 13-2 team. They had an amazing run, and there are no signs of it slowing down moving into 2026, and that's pretty cool. So we'll see exactly how that goes as well. Rough game, rough ending, but Ole Miss will come back stronger. We'll talk to you later. Hotty toddy.